Good afternoon. I know it's a very beautiful day inside and outside, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today to have a conversation about the Biennial of the Americas, but more in context of doing a project in the peripheries and what that means. I want to firstly thank Art Basel for inviting Claudio, Micha, and everyone for having us here and giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. And mostly to my panelists today, Moises, Micha, Boris, Hirmas, and Gonzalo, Lebrija. We're going to have a conversation style, so I'm just going to give just a few minutes of a overall setting, and then I'm just going to switch to questions so that it can be more of a conversation. Also in the audience, we have several people from Denver, Colorado, as well as Mexico and Argentina who are participating in the project. So I'll leave some time for the questions. And Eduardo Basualdo, who's in the audience, is one of the artists for the 2013 edition, which will have a installation in the heart of the city. And there's members from both the Denver Art and Denver Contemporary Museum who were very supportive of this project last time around. So the conversation, and this is kind of 3 out of 4 of us have now been spending more time in the United States, which is a new thing. I've lived in Mexico for the last 9 years. Moises is Mexican, but they just built an amazing hotel in New York, so he's been in New York a lot. And Boris, who has been in Mexico for how many years?
Most of my life.
Most of your life, is now living in Miami as well. And Gonzalo, being an artist, kind of lives everywhere, but he is from Guadalajara, Mexico, and has had an incredibly successful career. And he will be our bridge to also the 2010 Biennial, because he did an amazing installation that was still visible for all of us who were in Denver all last year in the parking lot of the Denver Contemporary Museum, which was one of the most memorable images of the 2010 Biennial. So for us, it's a completely new context to be working on a project that talks about the Americas and doing it, but now based in the United States of America and in a city that is not New York or Los Angeles, but it's a second city, a city that is beautiful, that is young, very vibrant, has communities with a lot of energy and a lot of desire to do innovative programming. And what does it mean to do projects like this? Looking at it from a perspective of someone who works in the arts, the artists, patrons, and patrons who come to the projects from very different perspective. Moises, Micha, and the Grupo Habita, now having opened their 12th hotel, first one in New York after the first 10 that were incredibly successful, and now the 12th one in Baja California, merged their passion and their patronage for the arts with doing the work that they're doing, which in Mexico no one puts a label on it, but in the United States we call it social entrepreneurship, we call it social responsibility. Boris, but also serving on the board of several museums, and during my entire time in Mexico, whether on the Patronato of PAC, the patronage of contemporary art, which I also share with Boris Hirmas, always supportive of all the artists and people from the museum and the non-for-profit institutions by giving us accommodations, by affording us the ability to be able to host them properly. Boris comes from a patron who supported artists, many of them at the beginning of their careers when they weren't able to do the kind of work that they wanted to, particularly artists that went beyond the two-dimensional existence, and to his latest huge project being the chair of the Sala Siquieros, and bringing back to life La Tallera, to now being in Miami and trying to bridge that conversation. And to look at it, I think you are going to be really the key in tying us all together, because you are an artist, and how that works for you, working in different contexts, adapting and staying true to the work that you do as an artist, but within these new languages. So with that, I'd like to first start maybe with you, Gonzalo, a little bit, because of the experience and tell us a little bit about now joining the board of the Museum of Contemporary Art and what that means.
Right.
And as we speak, you're going to see a loop of pictures rather than us making a presentation. Some of them are about the Biennial in the edition of 2013, which I'm leading, because it has an architecture, a public art, and a performance and exhibition program. And then there'll be pictures that are from the hotels and the installations done by many of the artists in them. And so we're just going to use them as a backdrop.
All right, thank you very much. So the way I start involving myself into institutions or things like that is because I come from the province, from Guadalajara, where we have to also build our own art scene to succeed in the art world. And so that means we have to be not only the work of an artist, but also the work of institution director or board member of an institution. And so we started like that, in Guadalajara. And I see in Denver, it tends to be the same way than in Guadalajara. And what is also very interesting is the way that these provinces, where cultural institutions develop, it's interesting because they are more intimate. And the role of a collector, for example, the role of a director of a museum or the curator or people that works with the museum, the people from the board, artist, audience, like it becomes more intimate and it works very well, all together. And I guess this makes it also very interesting, like if you compare it to the big cities.
Is that what led you to being part of the board of MCA? Because
I guess it had to do with that, and because I did this big work, which took me a lot of time coming and going. So I established this connection with the people from the museum, from people from the board, and at the same time it is now like a tradition in the museum. There's Nora here, the curator from the museum. That it's sort of a tradition that at least one Mexican artist shows at the museum per year. And there's also an event called Huevos Rancheros, which is a Mexican event that we do a party where like Mexican DJs are involved into the party, and it's like a Mexican festival.
Right, who happen to also be Mexican artists. Eduardo Sarabia did that.
Which is making a show next year as well.
Yeah. So it does lead, doing a project like that then led to this relationship that is becoming more institutional.
Yes.
Moises, having kind of started with all this support in Mexico through not only your work but through the hotels, now coming to the United States, are you finding a way that you're able to continue to promote the kind of the artists and the projects that were being done in Mexico and now bringing it to the United States through the projects that you're supporting here in New York?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. We started in the year 2000, and at that time, in each project that we've done, we normally invited an artist to intervene the hotel or the spaces in each way in a different manner. So now that we had the opportunity to bring the hotel to the artist community in the center of Chelsea, right, where all the art galleries are, we have that privilege to bring the Mexico, or the heart of Mexico, into the contemporary art world. And the interest that we've been seeing so far is that all that international crowd is very interesting in those secondary cities or in remote locations, or we have hotels in Veracruz that you can only reach them by 6 hours driving, and that's becoming really, really attractive to all the artist community.
So you're able to foster kind of a dialogue. And you guys with Veracruz in particular, have you finally opened the residency project?
We're about to open. It's already finalized, but now we're in the moment of having the program and everything, launching it for next year, for beginning of 2013.
Which will be really amazing, kind of taking it to the next step. Boris, Tell us a little bit about the bridge, first starting in Mexico, then with the Tate, then now in Miami. The work that you've been doing. One of the artists that just showed at the MCA, also a really important artist that I've supported in Tercero Un Quinto. You supported them early on in their career. How's the trajectory? How do you kind of keep that thread and keep true to supporting and making sure that the artists that you've supported are able to do the projects that they do in different contexts?
First of all, has to be with believing in the art, what the works, and believing in the work. We have been very fortunate in Mexico to have a fine pool of talent, not only the artists, but the museum directors and the institutions currently have, and we don't have them always, not only in Mexico, in general, in any city, or in any country, not always you have the good fortune of having a talented group of museum directors, of artists and academics, and we have that in Mexico, and that has really helped to change things. I've started at the Sala de Arte Publico Siquieros. It's a small Kunsthalle, really, in Mexico City. The former Siquieros, the famous Mexican painter, donated his home to the Mexican people. And this space has and guards the several works by Siquieros, but curiously enough, what it does best is commission contemporary art. So being a small space, it has managed to become a cutting-edge space for Mexico to present and commission contemporary works of art. We recently were asked by the Fine Arts Institute to merge Sala de Arte Público Siquieros with La Tallera, which is Siqueiros' home in Cuernavaca. It's a nice, beautiful city in the outside of Mexico, and where Siqueiros had his studio. And it's called La Tallera, and in English cannot translate, but in feminine, because he named it La Tallera in feminine because he thought, well, he said it's where he gave birth to the works. So both spaces have been merged. La Tallera, unfortunately, had been abandoned for many years with the Siqueiros murals inside, and they were damaged, some of it. We were fortunate to rescue them and restore them. The Fine Arts Institute cooperated. The Swiss government was generous enough to help us. And through the amazing work of Frida Escobedo, a young architect, we just refurbished La Tallera completely. It's an amazing space where we're going to have residences. We're going to present for curators, for critics, and for artists. So they work simultaneously. I've got involved as well. I was invited. I had the honor to be invited to the Latin American Acquisitions Committee from Tate Modern. It's the oldest committee in Latin America from a non-Latin American museum, and it works. It works very well. We do very hard work. They do very hard work. I just been there a couple of years. And we really managed to, through the committee, to influence on what the museum collects. And we have been able to rewrite a bit of the history, which, as you may have it, it is written in those museums. No? Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was very important. I was convinced it was very important to participate, no? in a museum like Tate, which, as well, it's a very nice.
And in Miami?
In Miami, I was invited by Florida International University to become their entrepreneur in residence. I thought it was a very good opportunity to understand how the U.S. operates in general, not only just visiting, but living here. And it's really my first time living in the States for more than a year. And I thought it was a very good opportunity. So I moved with the family a year ago. And from here, I'm convinced I can do a lot to really to help the artist and to foster a network that can be a bridge to communicate the artists from Mexico and Latin America with the American audience, with the American institution. That's really my purpose.
Gonzalo, how was the first overture to participate in the Biennial, and when, because you actually were there much before me, so you can tell a better story. Why was that project attractive to you? What do you think it will do? You know, having started that project and having a project that basically focuses on the Americas, and we do focus on Canada. However, it certainly has a greater presentation, not only from Mexico. I know the representatives on the panel today are from Mexico, but there's a very strong Argentinian and Brazilian participation in all aspects of the Biennial in 2013. But how did that story evolve, and how will it be important to have people like these personalities who I've convinced to join my international board and help promote? How can that conversation, and how do you as an artist see this being a platform for other artists?
Well, for me, it was interesting from the beginning. From the idea that there was a willing to invite me to produce a specific artwork in a public space. And at the beginning, the government was involved to sponsor the project, but then it ended up being sponsored by Amy Harman, she's part of the board of the museum,
And our board as well.
Yeah, and your board as well. And she very generously produced the sponsor the artwork, and it changed, of course. The artwork changed from the beginning. It adapted into the circumstance, and but I like this energy, you know, with the people from the institution, like board members that were involved in all the projects and really into it, going into all the details of pre-production, and so yeah, that was very exciting, you know, when the community is really willing to make an effort for a project like this to become, you know.
Has it impacted the way you approach work now, or has it impacted how are you more open to doing work in for example, for me, there is the involvement of the board, and it is a new thing. People being that involved in your daily workings is actually a very, very challenging part when you're not used to it. So for me, as a person running the projects, because I'm a bit hands off. I mean, I think Eduardo Basualdo can say, you know, he came to Denver. I was like, you walk around for a couple of days, then I sit down with you. I tend to stand back a little bit. So the American style, even me as an American who's been away for 16 years, I find that every kind of checking is challenging.
Well, I mean, I would really love to have always a sponsor to produce my ideas, no? But
you like that?
But I guess, I mean, that's not the reality. But you know, it just tends to be in the Biennial, and yeah, I think it's a great project.
What do you think? How do you think that a project like the Biennial happening in Denver, wanting it to communicate with projects that you guys are doing, which is one of the reasons that I asked and begged both of you, and actually Rafael Micha to be the head of my international board, can further, you know, expand this dialogue and open kind of this dialogue that is much more natural. You know, I think, you know, Patricia Cisneros once said that was how it was with the MoMA, that she really first gave money for people to travel to Latin America to understand the context better. And then the MoMA started making it a part of their existence. So it's not something so label-based, but the artists become artists and stop being really Mexican artists or Argentinian artists. They just become a part of the fabric of the contemporary art that we see.
I'm convinced it's about the platform. It's about creating venues and platforms where people from different backgrounds with a common interest in the arts and culture, in creating these conversations and creating the network and the multiplying effect can get together. So I'm convinced that what you are doing is it's crucial to a better understanding of our cultural in general, the situation in the world. And especially when you consider that, in our case, in Mexico and the US have been neighbors, and we still have so much work ahead to do. No? I think we need these spaces, and whether they're in Denver but someone has to do them. So.
Do you find it's harder to execute some of the projects that you want to, given some of the restrictions that we have in the United States that are sometimes a little more, I mean, I've been looking at all the different insurances that I have to get and all the different, do you find that with the project in New York or in Austin, that to be able to do all the artistic side of it as well, you have to kind of adapt in a different way?
Yeah, well, of course, it's a total different type of project, and it has several layers and new challenges, and so. But the final, the outcome, it's really about the same, no? About delivering a unique product, also with the artist community integrated to it.
I'm wondering whether some of those images that have the commissions, are they going online? And do you think that when I was interested in something you said first thing, you said, you know, we took, now that we're in the center, in the heart, in Chelsea, doing this project, we brought Mexico. How is that unfolding? How are you making that happen?
I think it's a really nice surprise for us that we were embraced by the artist community, and they love it. We have also Mexican brunch on Saturdays and Sundays, and they love the chilaquiles, and all that part of us, of our background, it's in every little detail of the hotel in New York. So I think it has worked for a good, with a good outcome.
And you started working with some of the institutions in New York.
Yes. Just recently, we gained with the art galleries in Chelsea to do a benefit after Sandy hurricane.
Yeah.
And then we had all the artistic community we raised more than 50,000. It was led by Paul Kasmin, and with us we did all the, so it's all these small projects that add up, and they also have a result in interesting in Mexico and Latin America on that community.
I know that Mexico is natural because we are neighbors, and the dialogue has been, but since you're on the Latin American Acquisitions Committee and we're all moving, how do we take the dialogue further? And you know, I do a project in Argentina with U-Turn every year, and I've seen more and more traffic, but how can we get more of the dialogue to encompass, you know, I mean, Colombia, the scene is strong, Latin American acquisitions team just went to Peru. There's such amazing, you know, work coming out of other countries. How can we further that and that dialogue?
It's about, again, I would say it's about the people. You need the right people, the right mix, and the interest and belief in the work. No? And when you start the conversation, it takes you through many paths and many stages, but it gets you to very interesting areas that you wouldn't think they're there. And it's really just, it's a matter of time, as long as there's a passion and someone driven to, convinced about why is it important to bring that into context or bring that into conversation. No? But,
and the participation of the audience, of course. No, there is a willing and I mean, that's what it surprised me very much in Denver. The impact that the Museum of Contemporary have is incredible. You can see it in the openings. There's like thousands of people running around. The same as the Biennial. No? Like people are really into it, very enthusiastic, asking questions, getting involved with the art, with the artist. So it's, you know, I think that's what makes it.
I think that's very
complements
true.
it.
as with art in general, it's for me the big lesson is from art is teaching you to solve whatever life brings you, through creativity. So that happens in the art industry itself. You have to be creative. It can be done. Yes, you have all sorts of rules in different countries, in different geographies. And it is what it is. You just need to understand what those rules are and work with them, you know? Because there's no better place to do a project or another project. Some people say, what you do, for instance, in Mexico, we would never be able to do in the United States. I'm sure you can. You know? It's different. You know? But I'm sure you have just to be a bit more ingenious about it, and believe in the work, and that drives you.
Actually, you said it really beautifully. There are some folk from Denver here, and it would be lovely. I think the microphone is there, and if I know Claudio, I think it would be great if there were some, if you have some comments that you want to add on to the conversation, those of the colleagues that are from Denver, that would be wonderful. About the context of Denver in particular, hosting and wanting a project like this, which, just to give you a little bit of a context, was not one that was born entirely out of art, but because the governor of the state, when he was mayor, really wanted a project that somehow was able to bridge these different worlds, and which is why it has components that are not traditional to a biennial structure. But that I suppose is what makes it really special in some ways. So maybe with that, we'll open it up to some questions, not just for us, but some of our colleagues in the audience. We answer every question. Do we have any comments from Nora, the museum, or any of you? I know, putting you guys on the spot, but I think since you guys have been involved so long in the scene, even before me, you can speak to as to why, because that's the number one question I get. Why is Denver doing a biennial? Why are they giving it a shot? She's over there.
Thank you, Abaseh, and hello, everybody. I guess the only thing I would want to add is to bring a kind of local perspective to bear on the discussion of the biennial, and that Denver has a very active and vibrant arts community, and so to bring a biennial to Denver and to grow it and to make it as successful as I'm sure it will be under Abaseh's leadership, part of its strength comes from also bringing in the local art community, and so partnering with local arts organizations such as the MCA has been thrilling, and I think to elevate the profile of the local arts scene by putting it in context with these very exciting programs that you have designed, I think is a way to kind of balance the two, and is in part, I think, what the governor, then mayor, had in mind in terms of having the arts and the kind of cultural community be an engine for economic development, urban development, et cetera, et cetera. And so thank you very much for all of the success that I'm sure it will come with this program.
What I think it's important is to consider that in our world we need to really make the effort to include the rest of society and break the traditional molds of I go to the museum and I am presented with the work. I think it's very valid nowadays that the rest of the